Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Guys, did things escalate quickly today? So last night I went to bed. I was speaking to my friends in Ukraine, various, they work for various NGOs and other agencies. The word from the word on the street in Ukraine last night was that the fighting was intensifying in and around Kharkiv. Woke up this morning. When I went to sleep last night, there was 4 villages that had been taken. When I went to sleep when I woke up, this morning, there'd been 9 villages taken. I put a video out this morning, talking about Antarctica and how I see, that as a real threat to the United Kingdom. Literally, like a couple of hours later, Rishi Sunak's on the, on the mainstream media, the British Prime Minister, and he's talking about darker days are coming and nuclear war. I was like, wow, this has escalated really, really quickly in the couple of hours since I made the last video. So what does it all mean then, and how does it all tie together? So basically, all the mainstream media at the moment, they're all talking about fightings erupted in and around this region in Ukraine called Kharkiv. Again, I've said this, I've been saying this and like banging the stick saying the Russians are not trying to get into Kharkiv. They're trying to encircle it because then they don't need to go into it. Now, what has happened? Let's just explain why this conflict's different to most other conflicts that have been fought, really. The use of cheap drones, and by drones, I did a video previously on the different types of drones, and what I'm meaning now is basically the really cheap ones you can buy off the shelf, like the smaller ones, like the DJI, basically ones you can buy off the shelf. They can take about a kilo, maybe 2 kilos of a payload, and then they can drop that onto wherever they want. How this has changed warfare. What it's done, it's stopped big movements happening. Now, it's not stopped big movements because these little drones can take out troops. No, what they're doing is they're focusing on the artillery. So normally, when you're doing a big attack, a large-scale movement where you've got tanks, you've got infantry, you've got air support, you need artillery to support that, to suppress your enemy's artillery fire. Now, I guess the Achilles heel of these artillery systems are the amount of ammunition that they need to go with them, because people think, oh, the artillery pieces are the main piece. No, it's the ammunition. It's always the ammunition. The ammunition's consumable. It degrades. It can be faulty. That it needs to be stored in certain conditions. So the ammunition is always the weak link to these systems. So what the use of these smaller drones has done, in effect, if the Russians or if the Ukrainians, whichever side you're talking about, if they're planning a big movement, as soon as they start seeing a load of ammunition being stockpiled, they can just send in these smaller kamikaze drones, and they can hit these ammunition supplies. And obviously, because it's ammunition, it's highly explosive, and then that just blows up. And then all the ammunition for that mission, for that task, for that campaign, all the ammunition's gone. The campaign can't go ahead. So what you're seeing now is intense groups of smaller fighting. So it's come down to, as I said it would, it's come down to a slugging match now. So smaller groups of, maybe section, I doubt platoon, because at platoon level, so like platoon's not 30, but let's just, for argument's sake, let's keep it simple. Groups of around 30 people, 15 people, they become a target for drones. Your normal drone operator, he's not going to fly his drone into, a couple of people, because it's not going to be that effective. So anyway, that's really how, drones have, and there's other reasons, drones can give, they can give fire alterations, they can give early warning, they can do a lot of reconnaissance. That this has been brought onto the battlefield, and it just wasn't, it wasn't there in this capacity 10, 15 years ago. By this capacity, I mean this mass capacity. It used to be, your drone operator would be a very specialized task. They would sit in an ops room. The pilot would be in, I don't know, somewhere in America. You talk to him on, I've got a fly in here. Yeah, you talk to your drone operator on whatever system, you know, and then they would alter the aircraft. Now this is all done by first person flying, first person view, and it's all done locally. So that's, you know, that's been a huge change, that capacity in ISR, which is, what's the ISR? Intelligence, reconnaissance and surveillance. So the ISR platforms. And again, you know, you can add small munitions to these drones. So that's how those drones have affected this conflict in Ukraine. And that's how, you know, the fighting in and around Kharkiv is being done at a smaller level, at smaller unit tactics. And it's only a matter of time before they, you know, before the Russians manage to encircle Kharkiv. And then once that's encircled, that's pretty much it, game over until right up until the River Dnipro. Then the Ukrainians are going to have to push back. If the Ukrainians want to take my advice, that would be get your men out of Kharkiv now, because it's about to be encircled. There's not enough, it's, you know, all this military aid's been, you know, it's been pledged to Ukraine. All these weapons, these, you know, this ammunition, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You know, the companies can produce it, that's fine. You know, they can produce the ammunition, that's fine. If there's no men there to use it, it's pointless. So that's what they need at the moment. They need to pull all their men and as much equipment as they can back out of the east, and they need to get everything now back over the River Dnipro, where they can, you know, where the Ukrainians can form a realistic defensive line, because there's nowhere at the moment they can form a defensive line. Now that's going to be very difficult for the Ukrainians to do. Not on a tactical level, on an emotional level, because, you know, the Ukrainians, they're proud people, they want to fight there for their country, and they don't want to give up land. But, you know, they need to understand that, you know, at some point it's not going to be feasible to hold that ground anymore, and they need to get all their guys back over the other side of the Dnipro, where they can then mount a tangible defense. So that's what's been happening in Ukraine, guys, and it's only a matter of time before all this is, you know, absolute pea soup, and it's gone from bad to worse. And the fighting's really intensified, as I said it would, as soon as the United States said that they were going to give 61 billion to Ukrainians. Russia said, all right, we'll see about that. And that's when the Russians really started pushing down. And as you can see now, hour by hour, they're taking ground after ground. So closer to home, guys, what's been happening? Something that's really notable. There's a an alleged UK Border Force agent who used to be a Royal Marine. Now it's alleged that he's been spying for China. Remember what I said like a few videos ago about spies, saboteurs, these international attacks on foreign soil? They're no longer going to, and I don't think they ever were, they're not going to be done by, you know, men in tuxedos and expensive cars and expensive watches. They're literally just going to pay criminal gangs. They're going to pay people to spy, which is what you're seeing in the news now. And I really fear that places like the UK, the US, who has, you know, a liberal immigration policy, with liberal Western democracy, we're really going to suffer, because, you know, we have people who living among us who potentially want to do us harm. And, you know, it's not going to be difficult to say, hey, you know what, I'll give you 10 grand, go and set fire to that field, I'll give you whatever, go and smash this pipe. And these are acts of sabotage that you can't relate them to a nation state, because it's very hard to trace. All that's going to happen is you're going to say, oh, this was an act of violence, this was an act of vandalism, this was a criminal act, you know, these sort of things. But what I think is going to happen in the UK, especially as we come into the summer months, we're going to see, you know, fires, large-scale fires, you know, at strategic places. You're going to see, you know, infrastructure systems getting broken, getting vandalized. And the media are never going to understand what's actually happening, because they can only say what the government are telling them. But the reality is, a lot of these fires that are going to happen, a lot of these criminal activities that are going to happen, they're going to be done by nation states, and they're just going to pay people. Why wouldn't you pay somebody to go and attack your adversary? It makes absolutely no sense not to do that sort of stuff, you know. And that's the nature of warfare as we move on. Look at the you know, the Russian that it was a tragedy, you know, watching the videos of, you know, these attackers in Russia. You know, they got paid like $5,000 each. Now, to some people, $5,000 is a lot of money. Now, there was 4 of them, so like, you know, $20,000. You can't even buy a decent camera for a drone for that much. You'd be lucky to buy, you know, a good autopilot or a ground control station. So for that amount of money, you've caused an absolutely catastrophic, you know, incident. And again, I've said this many times, the UK police are not geared up to deal with an active shooter. They're not geared. I mean, I did a video on our other platform about there was a man with a chainsaw, and I think it was in Scotland, but I can't remember. There was a man with a chainsaw on the street, and all the police were running away from him. And like, can you imagine if that was a man with a gun, or 2 men with a gun, with 2 guns, or God forbid, you know, they managed to get 4 men who know how to work with each other as a team and how to use those rifles. You know, the police wouldn't have the police would have to call the army. This would take time. All this time, these people are, you know, causing absolute chaos on the streets. So that's the danger we're in at the moment, guys. You know, Rishi Sunak saying that we're in the closest time since the Cold War to nuclear, you know, to nuclear conflict. I think the more realistic, pathway for this, you know, all this to happen, I've said it like loads of times, I think Putin would use, I think the Russians would use a low-yield tactical nuclear weapon on the battlefield in Ukraine. And then I think, you know, the Western governments could make 2 choices. They could say, right, this is a limited exchange. It's not really done much damage, but the next one could be a lot worse. The next one could be, you know, absolutely catastrophic. So I think could be the next move, because, you know, let's not be under any illusion. If you're in Russia, if you're in the Russian military, you're already fighting NATO. You're fighting NATO equipment. You're fighting NATO trained soldiers, you know, and from the Russian side, you know, the Russians will be getting told, yeah, if we don't win this war, NATO's going to come and invade us. Guys, you know, I think all these wars should stop, because nobody profit. Well, a lot of people profit. The only people who profit from wars are the people who produce the ammunition. But on the lower level, there are people dying, guys, okay? And each person that dies is somebody's son, is somebody's daughter, is somebody's husband, wife, you know, and they've got families and trauma related to that. And it's just, it shouldn't be happening in today's, you know, in today's society. When we started these channels, I wanted to talk about space and aliens and a little bit of current events and all sorts of weird stuff. But the reality is, I've not had a chance, because there's so much bad stuff happening. We have to cover this because it's kind of important. And it was on one of our live streams I was talking about it. I think the main reason why I wanted to cover these events that are happening, that are unfolding around the world, and how they're all connected, is the invasion in 2022 when Putin went into Russia. You know, I was in the house. Guys, honestly, I've got a lot of friends in Ukraine. I've been working. I've got a lot of good friends in Ukraine. You know, so I was trying to sort stuff out here. I had like 3 phones going, WhatsApps, you know, I had group chats, people emailing me from America, from Canada. Then I had people in Australia. It was absolute chaos. I didn't sleep for like, I don't know how long. And my mother, I've got like it's difficult to get into my house, but anyway, she phoned me up. She says, I'm at the gate. So I went down, I opened the gate, I let her in. My mother was absolutely crying. There was tears coming down her face. She had 2 big bags of like food and water and chunky soup from Aldi. And she said, Sean, we're going to have to come and get you cellar if this goes down, because we're all going to... And she was absolutely terrified. And I thought, if you don't understand these systems, if you don't understand how these systems work and what triggers need to be in place before these things to happen, it is terrifying. And the general public do get absolutely terrified. So I think part of this channel is just to stop people's unnecessary panic and unnecessary, you know, fear. Because if you understand what's coming next, if you understand the why and the how, you're not scared. It's like if you're a boxer, the only punch that knocks you out is the one that you don't see. And guys, I think I'm going to leave it there because I've been rabbiting now for almost 15 minutes. Guys, if you've not done so already, please like, follow and subscribe. It really helps us out when we do that. And we're going to be on tomorrow. We're going to be doing lots on our other platform because we've got a new, I can't tell you what we've got, but we've got something new coming, guys, on our other platform. So I'll see you guys tomorrow and have a good evening.